All right, hey guys, let's fly through these notes. So fungi. Look back on that back wall. We have covered bacteria, archaea, protists. Remember that protists are unicellular eukaryotes. Now we're on to fungi. All fungi are multicellular eukaryotes. So multicellular meaning more than one cell. Eukaryotes meaning having a nucleus. Except one, yeast. And we're going to talk about yeast a little bit later on. So all mushrooms share three important characteristics, and I think I have made this fairly easy for you guys to remember. They have spores to reproduce, they are heterotrophic, and they are eukaryotic. So let's run through these three words real quick. So spores, basically think of it like a little seed. Okay, if you want to grow a flower or a pumpkin or something, you're going to plant a seed into some soil, put some water on it, and boom, a couple months later you got a flower. So spores are like a seed. Heterotrophic means that they have to eat food. Okay, and then eukaryotic means that they have a true nucleus because it's a eukaryotic organism. So these mushrooms need warm, moist places to grow. So you might notice them popping up after a rainstorm or around your shed or around the edge of your house if it's shady, because shade often keeps a lot of moisture in. They vary in size from unicellular yeast all the way up to multicellular mushrooms. So let's look at these guys for a second. Uni, remember, means one. Unicellular yeast. These guys make bread fluffy and they make beer bubbly. So we're actually going to do a lab with them this week. It's finally the fart lab. The yeast actually eat the sugar, and then when they're done eating, they fart. So that's what makes your bread all nice and fluffy and your beer nice and bubbly when you're older. Okay, so when you eat bread, you're eating yeast farts, but that's fine. Multicellular mushrooms. Multi meaning more than one cell. Think of the word multiple. Okay, multicellular, more than one cell. Mushrooms. Okay, that's just the mushroom that you're thinking of in your head. Okay, you can go to the store. You can buy all different types of mushrooms. They're a really good food source. I didn't like them till I was an adult, so maybe you guys like them and maybe you don't. Hyphae are branching thread-like tubes that make up the bodies of multicellular fungi. So you can see down here in this picture how it kind of looks a little hairy, and then over here in this picture how it looks like a bunch of different roots coming out. So you can see that these hyphae are tubes. They're thread-like tubes that make up the bodies. So we're going to actually play with a mushroom at some point this week. And when we break apart the stem, you're going to see the hyphae. You're going to peel it apart just like a string cheese stick, for your lunch. You're going to see the different hyphae. So I think that part's pretty cool. And these hyphae, they do a lot of jobs, and we're going to get into it. So fungi are heterotrophic, but not quite like animals. So as an animal, you are an animal because you're a human. You have a mouth hole. So when you get hungry, you go put food in that hole. Oreos or pizza or whatever else you like to eat. Fungi don't have a hole. They don't have a mouth hole. So they have to use their hyphae, those little tubes that we just talked about on the last level. But they eat in a kind of weird way. So they ooze out digestive chemicals into that food. So did you ever have a burp that my mom would describe it as a little wet? It kind of, when you burp, a little something comes up out of your stomach and it kind of burns the back of your throat. That's digestive chemicals. You have all sorts of chemicals in your body, and most of them are pretty safe. That stuff, that burny stuff, is in your stomach, and in your stomach, it's totally safe. But sometimes you burp and it comes up a little bit, and that's why it hurts. Mushrooms don't have a stomach. So what they do is they leak out or ooze out these chemicals out of their hyphae. Those chemicals break down or dissolve the food, and then those hyphae can absorb it. They can suck it up like a straw. So imagine if you sat down with a piece of pizza, pepperoni, maybe some green peppers on it, because that's really good. And then you oozed out some chemicals all over that plate, and you watched it. And eventually it started to dissolve and bubble and turn a little green, and ugh. Yeah, that still looked good to you. So you pulled out a straw and you slurped up that piece of pizza, and you go, delish. Well, that's how a mushroom eats, okay? They ooze out those chemicals, they break down their food, and then they slurp it up with a straw. A lot of mushrooms will eat dead or decaying matter. So most of the times you're going to find them on dead grass, or maybe a dead tree stump, or maybe a tree fell over. You're going to see mushrooms all over that. all kinds of, sometimes dead animals might sprout some mushrooms. But some live on living organisms. So you have yeast on your body right now. That's perfectly fine. Okay, you have it in a couple different places. The only story I know to tell is if you have an inhaler, not a rescue inhaler, if you have a daily inhaler, your doctor might have told you, hey, you make sure that you rinse your mouth out after you're done taking your inhaler. If you don't, you could get something called thrush. And thrush is a yeast infection of the mouth. So an infection, just like bacteria, means you have a bunch of it. So you can actually end up with a bunch of yeast in your mouth. And it's not going to kill you, most likely, as long as you get some medicine, get it treated up. But that's just the one precaution I know about. So if they ever tell you, hey, make sure that you rinse your mouth out, just make sure you do that because you don't want a yeast infection in your mouth. When there is plenty of moisture, when it has just rained or something like that, mushrooms actually prefer to reproduce asexually. Remember that A here means not sexually. So there's no kissing, there's no dates, there's no candles, there's no steak, no lobster, nothing like that. They actually just bud off and reproduce all by themselves. They form fruiting bodies. These are the reproductive structures that release the spores. So as a kid, and sometimes still as an adult, I like to kick mushrooms. If I see one, I'm going to walk up to it and I'm going to kick it. So what I'm kicking is actually the fruiting body. I'm kicking the no-no parts of the mushroom. So that's a little weird when you think about it like that. But next time you kick one, just imagine you're kicking off the no-no parts of the plant. Ugh. Wind can easily carry these spores, so if you ever look at your shoe after you kick that mushroom, you might notice there's some brown or orange dust on your shoe. That's actually baby mushrooms. Those are spores. So when you kick it, you're actually kind of doing a good thing. You're moving those spores around so that the mushroom can make babies in more places. Okay, so that's that. But fun fact, so the part that you eat is the fruiting body. That is the reproductive part of the plant. So I enjoy mushrooms, and I know Miss Sewell does as well, and I'm sure some of you guys enjoy mushrooms. You're actually eating the reproductive or the no-no part of the plant. The rest of the mushroom is actually gigantic. It's huge, and it grows underground. So when you're kicking that mushroom, you're not touching most of the mushroom. Most of it grows underground, under the grass. It's probably 6 to 8, maybe 12 inches under the ground, so you're not going to accidentally step on it. So I have a pretty cool picture on the next slide. So the world's largest mushroom is 1,665 football fields big, and it is over 2,000 years old. And you can see here, you see where the dark and the light border kind of meet the whole way around here? Where it's light, all in here, this is the world's largest mushroom. Do you see how massive that thing is? What you need to know is that the mushroom that's here is all underground. If you were to walk on top of this, you would just see grass. Scientists have a machine that can kind of pinpoint exactly where the mushroom is, and this is where they have shown where the mushroom is, and this is in Oregon. Okay, this 2,000-year-old mushroom is in Oregon. Now, yeast are tiny, okay, they're unicellular, so they need to reproduce kind of in a different way. It's similar to how bacteria reproduce, except they call it budding. Okay, remember in bacteria it was called binary fission. Well, here in mushrooms it's called budding. It's when a small cell grows from the body of a large cell. So you can see here we have one yeast cell. And then it starts to grow this tumor. And then the tumor gets a little bit bigger. And then some of the nucleus gets shoved over into this tumor. And then it gets almost the same size, and then boom, you got two new cells. So budding is different because we start off with a tumor, whereas with binary fission in bacteria, it ripped itself perfectly in half. That's not the case here, okay? Nothing is perfectly in half here. When conditions are bad or less favorable, they are going to reproduce sexually. And I know this seems a little weird. You're like, times are bad. Why are we doing the kissing thing right now? So why they're going to do this is because when you reproduce sexually, or when an organism reproduces sexually, it combines DNA. So when your mom and dad kissed and made you, you got half of dad's DNA and you got half of mom's DNA. You are a brand new organism that has never been made ever before. Same thing here. When times are bad, two mushrooms want to get together and make a baby because that's going to allow the DNA to combine so that there's a new organism with new adaptations, new mutations, all those things. Okay? So that's why they're going to reproduce sexually when times are tough. And no, they don't do any kissing, so one mushroom's not going to walk up to another mushroom and go, ooh, you're cute. No, not going to happen. They're going to extend those hyphae again, those tubes. They're going to reach two of those together, and they're going to kind of intertwine and weave around each other, and they're going to make a baby together. Fungi are decomposers. You might have heard of this word before. So decomposers, they feed on dead things. Remember I told you at the beginning that most of the time mushrooms are going to grow on dead stuff, dead leaves, dead trees, dead branches, that kind of stuff. It's going to break down the nutrients back into the soil. So you are full of nitrogen. And nitrogen is part of your DNA. It's part of your amino acids. It's part of almost every part of your body. So you need this nitrogen. So when you die, humans most of the time get buried in caskets. So they might get cremated or something. But if you would die in the forest and sadly no one would find you, mushrooms would actually break down your body, and all of the good stuff in your body would get recycled. And new plants would grow from your nutrients, okay? So I saw this thing when I was younger. You can actually, kind of weird, you can get your body, when you die, cremated and put in with a tree seed, okay, whatever kind of tree you like. And then a tree will grow from your ashes. So you have enough nutrients in your body to actually sustain a tree's life. So I think that's really cool, and that's what I told my family I want. Turn me into a tree. I think that'd be cool. A lot of people eat mushrooms, okay, vegans and vegetarians especially. Mushrooms are super good for them because they're really just really good for you. They're a little earthy tasting because they grow right out of the dirt. So if you've never had a mushroom, it kind of tastes like dirt, but when you put soy sauce on it, a little salt and pepper, it's super good. Okay. Some cause disease and others fight disease. So don't just go out into the forest and start picking up random mushrooms and eating them. That's not going to be good for you. You could get very, very sick. You could throw up a lot. You could poop yourself a lot. No good. Well, some actually are good. Okay, I don't know specific ones that are good, but I know there are some. Some cultures eat them to kind of cure stuff that they are battling. A lot of these live symbiotically. So we're going to talk about this later on this year. It's a pretty cool concept. They're going to work together with other organisms. So mushrooms and plants often work symbiotically. The hyphae of a mushroom is going to give the plant water. Then the plant is going to give the mushroom food in return. So I think that's pretty cool that they can kind of share. The mushroom walks up, doesn't walk because it doesn't have legs, walks up and says, hey, I got this water for you. And the plant goes, hey, I'll trade you some water for some sugar. And it's a win-win. So last concept that we have to talk about, it's definitely going to be a test question on your SOL next year. Lichen. Lichen is a fungus that lives in a relationship with algae or bacteria. I know it's a little weird. Okay, they're both going to benefit. It's kind of like the plant, when the plant was getting water and giving the mushroom food. So both are going to benefit here. The fungus might be giving the bacteria protection, and the bacteria might be giving the fungus something. I'm not completely sure on how it's going to work here. The pioneers, they're considered a pioneer species, and that's underlined because it's super duper important, because they grow first during succession, and that's another topic we're going to cover later on. Okay, but think of it this way. If a forest accidentally burns down because of a lightning strike or something, the first plants that are going to grow back are going to be this guy here, lichen. Okay, lichen, moss, small grasses. So that's what it means by pioneer species. Then big plants like brush and shrubs and bushes are going to grow, and then bigger, taller trees. So lichen, what I just kind of need you to know here is it's when a fungus lives with bacteria or algae. So that's it for this. Check the front board or go back to Google Classroom to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. Go on to the next step, and that's that.